Oh, there he is. Thank you. Welcome to this episode, Chapter 3 of the Indiana Broker Licensing course. Now we start getting into the fun stuff. The last couple courses we've talked about terminology and some of the words we've used. Today we're actually going to start getting into the real estate. And today we're going to talk about interests in ownership, or estates, depending on how you look at it. An estate is an interest in property. It includes all of those bundles of rights. Remember the bundle of rights we talked about yesterday? Those 5 twigs? When you pass those, that is an estate. So we're going to talk about the estates and how they get enjoyed and the type of enjoyment that you guys can get out of your estate or interest in real estate. We're going to identify the various types of estates because there's multiple different ones that you guys probably don't even know exist. We're going to talk about the difference between what a lien is and what an encumbrance is. One is monetary in value, one is non-monetary in value, and how they can reduce your interests. We're going to talk about public property and private property and things like that. But before we start this chapter, or before we start this page, I want you guys to flip to page 42. We're going to start there. If you're listening at home in your book, flip to page 42. We're going to start with the governmental powers. It makes more sense for me to show you this first so that you understand the rest of it, okay? So I'm going to draw on the board here a little glass of water. This is my glass of water, or coffee, depending on who you are, or Johnny Walker Blue Scotch, okay? Just depends on what time of the day. This is what I like to call my freedom cup of water. All right, the liquid in here represents the freedom that we have with our real estate. Most of the time when you see something like this, you go, oh, look, my glass is full. It's really not full. You've got this little space on top right there. In the physics world, we call that the head space. In the real estate world, we call these governmental powers. All right? And the reason I want to talk about these first is because these powers are the governmental powers that nobody gets. Nobody gets these. The government reserves all of these powers for themselves. And you'll see why this is important in just a second. And there are 4 governmental powers. All right? The first governmental power is the police power. The police power is the power that instructs you or guides you on how to use your property. Remember, I told you control is one of your rights. However, try going home and turning your house into a toxic waste dump tomorrow. Zoning is going to have something to say about it. That zoning is a police power. You are not smart enough to operate your own land, so the government's here to help you, right? We're from the government. We're here to help. So zoning is a police power. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want the government to tell me how to control my land. That's not what zoning does. What zoning does is it protects you from your neighbor's land, or your neighbor from you. You know, I don't want to have a really nice home, spend a lot of money, manicure the lawn, and then John next door turn his house into a toxic waste dump because that's what he wants to do. What's that going to do to the value of my home? Whose fault is that? It's not my fault. So there's rules that can control to make sure he doesn't do that. And I don't do that to him. They get these powers through what's called the enabling acts. The enabling acts. The enabling acts are the state's authority that is passed down to each municipality to regulate zoning. There is no state level zoning. So Greenwood or zoning may be slightly different than Greenfield zoning because each one has this municipality controls it. And they are given these powers through the enabling acts. Building code is a police power. Oh, I want to build a building. I'm going to build a 13-story building, but I'm really cheap, so I'm going to make it out of balsa wood. That's not safe for the public. So we have building codes that tell the builder, even though you think it's your building, nope, here's rules that make it safe for other people. Environmental laws, those are all police powers. They dictate. They actually take some of your glass of freedom water and pour a little out. That's what we're talking about. You think you have a full glass of water and I told you you have absolute control? Well, and I joked and said we're going to take them away the rest of this class. Here we go. Here's the first shot at it. You cannot do what you want with your property. You think you can, but the police powers are going to have something to say about it, whether they let you or not. All right? The second governmental power is called eminent domain. Eminent domain is the right of the government to take your property for the betterment of the public. All right? How they do this is a process called condemnation. I want you to make sure you're absolutely clear on what I just told you. The right is called eminent domain. The process to do it is condemning it, condemnation. They will condemn your property and take it from you. And they will do that because for the good of the public, we need your land. They are supposed to pay you just compensation. All right? Which you should read into that just barely compensation. Okay? They typically pay market value. Now, if you overpaid for the lot because you really, really wanted to be there, too bad. They don't pay you what you paid for the lot. They give you market value for the property. Okay? And there is a difference. A good example is this I-69 project that's going on south. There are people that I know that got their land taken so that they can put the highway through because it betters the state by being able to get to Terre Haute, or Evansville, I'm sorry. Like anybody would want to go to Evansville. Mainly it's a road to get out of Evansville is what it is. I take that back. My son goes to USI down there, so we've gone to Evansville several different times. So they'll pay you through eminent domain. Now, they do this through what's called the takings clause. The takings clause is found in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. Here's what's ironic to me. Now, I told you guys I'm not a practicing attorney. I didn't take the bar. I can't practice law. What else is the Fifth Amendment? The right to not incriminate yourself. So it's amazing to me that these two are in the same amendment. The right to take your property and the right to not incriminate seem like they should be completely separate, but they're both in the Fifth Amendment. In the 14th Amendment, you have the right to happiness and all that. So both of these have been challenged many times by homeowners saying that you can't take my property under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which says get pursuit to happiness and all that. And they're like, no. So don't try and sue them, because all you're going to do is throw good money after bad. It's already been proven time and time again that they can do this for you or to you. All right? There was a very interesting investment case in early 2004 that spilled over to 2005 called Kelo versus New London. Kelo was a young lady whose house had been taken in New London, Connecticut. They took her house and like 5 other houses. and they did it through eminent domain. They exercised eminent domain, and they took it and they gave it to a privately owned real estate developer to build a mall in their city. And her claim was, that's not the betterment of the public. It went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they found against her. New London argued that the city's mall would pay more in real estate taxes than those 5 houses were, and those real estate tax funds would actually benefit the public. And it went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they won. So there is already court precedent at the highest court of the land that will tell you that they can now take private land and give it to another person if they think they can do something better with it than you. So if you're a real estate investor, this is a scary court case for you. It still is in existence, hasn't been overturned yet, or maybe never will be. It was in 2005. It's called Kelo versus New London. So there is a thing now, there's an old saying, what's worse than finding a worm in your apple? Finding half a worm in your apple, right? You guys get that, right? Half is. It's called protein. There is a term called inverse condemnation. Inverse condemnation. And before I get to a video file,